Yeah, I remember the first song I ever made in like a professional setting, studio type thing. The song was called I'm Hungry. Like, Belly, I'm hungry. And I was like, yeah, this is perfect. The rollout will be great. You know what I mean? So
you're probably the best English pen out the community, you know, and by far the most accomplished one from our crew of MCs that came out in the early 2000s. And yeah, bro, out of Canada, you're one of the best too. Hip hop came to me in a basketball court in Verdun. I heard Illmatic for the first time from somebody else's boombox. Right. And that changed the course of my life. So I wanted to know what your first meeting was with hip hop when it came to you, you know?
it's kind of two layers with the, right? So my older brother brought home Doggy Style by Snoop Dogg. And I listened to that religiously. And then I think like my own album that I picked was Ready to Die, Notorious B.I.G. And, you know, I tell the story all the time that I took my mom to the store and there was a baby on the cover. So she had no idea what was actually on the album. You know, and that album really at that point, you know, I was still kind of learning English, you know. So those two albums kind of,
How old are you?
for good or bad, they shaped the way, you know, I kind of approached things. I was 10 at the time.
So,
Yeah.
what do you think hip hop helped you cope with? Like, what was the main channel that it helped you deal with? Was it your emotions? Was it your environment?
I think it had, you know, in terms of therapeutic effect on me in every aspect. A lot of times when I was overjoyed, I would want to write about it. If I was feeling down, I'd want to write about it. The situations happen to me. I'm not the type of person that opens up very easily to people. I think I open up to the pen and the paper. And that's like where people find out a lot going on with me. Even some of my closest friends will be like, you know, sorry. But you know what I mean? Like they'll really be surprised at some things that I don't really share a lot, so, of my personal life. So I think the music is where I put that. So it's really been like my therapist throughout my entire life.
How old are you when you wrote your first verse?
I want to say probably 12 years old.
What was your rapper name? Everybody had that first rapper name.
Oh man, I was Big Boy for a long time, and then I discovered Outkast, and I was like, I can't be a Big Boy, man. There's a powerful Big Boy already, so I need to change my name, you know?
Do you remember the first verse that you shared publicly?
Like my own?
Yeah, like the first bars that you ever spit.
Not really. I remember the first song I ever made in like a professional setting, studio type thing. It was at Swap Studios, my brother Gogs, and the song was called I'm Hungry. Like, Belly, I'm hungry. And I was like, yeah, this is perfect. The rollout will be great. You know what I mean? So that's how it all started.
Listen, I came up in Montreal, you came up in Ottawa. Very different vibes and different things you got to deal with.
Right.
Where we had this linguistic barrier, we had a very kind of free artistic environment. People were, you know, we had A-Track come out of Canada. We had like greats come out of Canada that were innovators. Ottawa is the capital of our country, and it's a bit of a tight squeeze as a city, you know?
Yeah, they got ficklers.
Yeah, I never lived there, but, you know, every time you go there, it's like a sitcom about Ottawa, you know? It has a very specific vibe.
Right.
So how did you know, what was the hip-hop scene like when you were coming up and started listening to it and were old enough to start going out and going to shows? You know, were you going probably Babylon to go see shows, hip-hop shows? What was the scene like?
Kind of, man. I love Ottawa because of what it instilled in me and like the drive it gave me to want to do this, you know? You can learn a lot from people what you want to be, and you can also learn a lot from what you don't want to be, right? And I was like, there's so many talented people and great people in this city that just can't see past the city. And they might have been the greatest artists or whatever field they're in. And I was like, I just don't want that to be me. You know, if I end up back here, that's cool. I love this place, but I want to go see the world and explore.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience with Ottawa was just really trying to find the best way to leave, but still represent, you know.
You ever go back just to go back?
No, I'm about to go do a show there.
Second Ottawa?
Yeah.
Amazing. What's your favorite restaurant in Ottawa?
Man, I haven't been there in years.
No, but when you were a kid, like what was the spot you went to?
Warm-up palace, for sure.
Warm-up palace.
Big portion.
Big branding.
I'm talking the big plate. The real Arab hospitality plates, you know?
Listen, you were the first Arab MC that I saw on TV that wasn't from France, you know, that was rapping in English. You know, it was 2005, 6, 7. I don't remember what year it was, but I remember we were dealing with a lot as Arabs in North America. And there were pockets of MCs, and you were really the first one to take our narrative and story and put it very subtly in commercial context, but also in just real raw context, you know?
Right.
Where did you find the courage at the time to say the things you were saying? Because you definitely were breaking the mold within our community, but also in hip hop and in general in the music space, you can't be us. You couldn't be us back then, you know? So what gave you the courage to just be yourself?
I think I would have been more scared to try to be anything else. You know, I think being me comes naturally to me. So yeah, I was always like, whatever comes with this, you know, and I can make that consolidation with myself. Like I made these choices and I suffered the consequence or I succeeded, right? Like, but you know, I can't ever look at a situation and believe it's wrong and tell you that it's right. And I can't stay quiet about it either, you know. And I haven't just said this about issues that relate to things, you know, in terms of where my background is from or where I've spoken for other, you know, oppressed groups before. Because I just, you know, if something's wrong, it's wrong. If something's right, it's right. You know, people make it about, when I go to interviews, they'll be like, so you speak about the political issues a lot. And I'm like, I don't. I speak about the human issues a lot. People get lost in
Specifics.
Yeah, the specifics. And it's like, bro, I'm looking out for the humans everywhere. The governments suck, right? And we're looking out for the human. If there's some looking and there's people, whether they look like me or not, and they're going through something, I'm going to say something. Doesn't matter what the consequence for that is.
Yeah, and I mean, that leads me right to, you know, skipping a whole like mixtape era that you went through. But, you know, the first CD that I got of yours was the Revolutionary, the double CD. It was a double CD,
yeah,
right?
Double, yeah.
Yeah, and it was crazy to see that you found, like, you know, I grew up on Pun and Biggie and, you know, Capone Noriega, and like you took all these slices of narrative that we experienced and like consumed together as a young population and turned it into the crystallization of what it means to be revolutionary in multiple spaces.
Thank you, man.
You know, I think as a Palestinian that comes naturally to you, and then in coming out of a place like Canada to do that was it's difficult, you know, to break through, right?
And it was. I mean, we didn't have hip hop radio in Canada, right? It was like 3 stations in the whole country. So if you were making top 40 records, you couldn't play nationwide. So that's already like the biggest leap to make. You know, a lot of us have a specific vision for what we want the music to sound like, and now it's like, well, no, it has to sound like this in order to play on the radio. And I was always like, all right, cool. You know, I'll play the game, but I'm gonna make sure that I got a whole bunch of Easter eggs in these songs. You know, so people can learn something.
Yeah. You know, as a Canadian MC or coming up in Canada, you have a chip on your shoulder. It's all of us do. You have a ketchup chip on your shoulder.
For sure.
And it's something you have to get over in order to really activate and align your spirit with your music and start being really like clear and articulate. And that's something that I noticed in your journey, was that you really started honing in on who you are as an artist, and you were able to expand into other artist roles, which we'll get into. But, you know, what did you do to get over that Canadian chip? Did you leave Canada? Did you have to leave Canada and see the world in order to understand that this is bigger than where I'm from?
It was funny. It's funny you asked that. That's a great question, because, you know, I left Canada, came here. I kind of learned a lot about the hustle, you know, watching like New York mixtape, street teams and stuff. And I was like, oh, we don't got this.
Yeah.
You know, how do we make this happen in Canada? So that was my whole thing. And then, you know, the chip on the shoulders thing, I think it goes away with like growing up, you know. I started like, I'll speak for myself. I can't speak for everyone, but, you know, I've felt jealousy when I was young, envy when I was young. And I think it's things you're supposed to go through to be like, oh, this ain't worth it. Like I could do big things too. We can all do big things. Like I don't gotta compare myself to nobody. I could just do me, right? And then when that came, the chip, I ate the chip. I dipped it back down, and it was over. Yeah. It was like, you know, I grew up, man. Yeah. You can't look at life. If at least for me, again, I don't want to speak like broadly for everybody, but for me, like I get the negative. I check myself, because it happens. We're human, right? Like I'll be like, damn,
check your inner voice.
I'll check myself immediately, and I'll be like, God bless, you know, like God give him more, not or her or whatever. Now it's like I gotta shake the haterism, even if I feel it. I'm trying to condition myself to not even feel it no more, you know.
You come from the beautiful land of Palestine. You know, when most of the time when people ask us about where we're from, whether it's Iraq or Palestine, or it usually is like in the frame of a negative context that we have to get over, which we fought for early on in our careers as musicians, to work on the image of what an Arab is. But I think what's more important is sharing the beauty and the richness of our culture, the current moment and the future of our culture. But one thing I never, no one has ever asked you was, you know, what is a beautiful memory you have of Palestine that you left home with, that, you know, it could be a smell, it could be a...
Honestly, I'll say growing up, like my most recent memories of childhood were in Jordan. And a lot of, you know, as many other Palestinian families know, we got displaced and we spread around the Middle East, you know. But I remember like all my uncles, aunts would get on the rooftop, and, you know, my pops would sing, one of my uncles would play drums, another would pull the oud out, start playing, and it was just like this jam, just like impromptu jam session out of nowhere. And it was like, those are the only nights I was allowed to stay up, you know. I'd be on the roof till like midnight. Was talking, yeah. So I try to really steer the conversation that way. When anyone brings up Palestine, I'm not trying to talk about trauma issues. You know what I mean? I'm trying to show people like there's a real beauty and history in that country, and people are some of the most amazing people on the planet. The hospitality is second to none. The food is incredible, and the land itself is just it's magical, you know. So yeah, I try to put that out there, as opposed to be like, you know, talk about anything that would bring trauma, or, you know, even remind somebody else of something that they don't want to remember at that time. Like, I'd rather remind us of the beautiful places we come from.
So I think that's it for here, for the first phase. Yeah, we're gonna move.